what we're looking at is rehabbing our core. We're not looking at, getting strong in other areas. That's the most important area of our body we need to focus on, is our pelvic floor and our core, and reconnecting, just finding that mind-body connection again with your core in itself is very difficult, but we do that through the breath work.
You're listening to the Madinat Mom Podcast, where real moms talk, experts share insights, and coffee fuels the chat so you can thrive in motherhood. I'm Noor, your host, and I'm here to remind you that you are not alone in your journey. My guest today, Sophia, is a fitness coach specializing in strength training and pre- and postnatal exercise for over 14 years. She's also a hypnobirthing teacher and the founder of Me 2.0, which is a women-only focused community helping moms rebuild their strength mentally and physically. Today, she'll walk us through how to find our strength again postpartum and share gentle movements any mom can start doing from home today. Sophia, welcome to the Madinat Mom Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Can we start by going back to the beginning of your fitness journey? When did you start training?
Oh gosh. I would say I was around 15. Yeah. My mum was actually a coach for 30 years. Back in those days, it wasn't, strength training wasn't such a big thing. So it was very much focused, your group fitness classes that were like aerobics and step and that type of training. But I remember going to her class when I was about 15, her first one. I mean, I'm one of 5 daughters, so she was just praying that one of us would follow in her footsteps. So she was always trying to get one of us to her classes. So I went along to one of her classes and I loved it. I loved the feeling that it gave me. It wasn't even about what I was doing. It was just that real good feeling, which I didn't know what it was at the time, but coming out, I was like, wow, like my energy just felt amazing. I was like, I really enjoyed this. Just like being around other women, bouncing off each other. And it was, my mum was the teacher and, I idolized her anyway. So it was just so nice to see her thriving in that environment, other than just being a mum. Like I got to actually see my mum at work and see the passion she had for it. So I think that's kind of like where it all started. I love the feeling that it gave me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how would you say motherhood shaped the way that you coach other women today?
I think it gives you a lot of empathy in women and their journey, on their fitness journey, because I've coached, for over 14 years now, and, ranging from prenatal ladies to ladies going through perimenopause and menopause and, ladies that are just getting into fitness, maybe in their 40s. So most of the women that I coach obviously are mothers, and being a mum myself and going on that fitness journey before, during, after, you have a lot of empathy for women and where their bodies are in each stage of their lives and pre and postnatal. And I think, just empowering women to feel okay with the stage they're at the moment, and, helping them understand that things get better, things get easier. And, I've been there. So I fully can understand the stages that women go through. So I think it's overall, empathy, understanding how the woman's body works and how it's recovering and rebuilding is really important.
Can you tell us a bit about your motherhood journey? How was that transition for you?
To be honest, I think because I had so much, I was always surrounded by young children. I'm one of 6 children. I've got younger brothers and sisters with quite a big age gap between us. So when we were teenagers, I was almost helping my parents raise my younger 3 brothers and sisters. And then both my older sisters had children before me. So I thought, wow, I've got so much experience around children, handling babies, and I've got this, I'm going to be fine as a mum. I know everything. No, you don't know everything. You think you know everything, even if you've had, and a lot of mums haven't even been around a lot of children before they have their own children. So you don't have that experience. I had a bit of experience. So I really thought that my journey into motherhood would be a lot easier than what it was. I also didn't expect to ever have my children away from home and be away from my family. That in itself is a huge struggle, I think. And I moved to Qatar. I was living here at the time when I fell pregnant with my first son, and I moved to Qatar around 4-5 months pregnant. So I didn't know anybody there. I didn't have any friends there. My family were living here at the time, so I moved away from my family, which again I didn't expect. I didn't think that was on the cards. I thought when I was raising my children, I'd have the support of my mum and my sisters, and this is going to be fine. But I was on my own, and it was really hard. It was really tough. I think just the transition into motherhood can be a really lonely place. I think we lose ourselves a lot in motherhood, which I don't think people talk about enough. You have all this freedom, you do what you want, there's no time constraints and there's no one else to think about. And then all of a sudden, overnight, your whole world gets turned upside down. And that alone is difficult. But then without the support of, close family or friends, it's so hard. And I definitely think at the time I didn't notice it, but I think it was years after looking back, I realised I definitely did have postnatal depression with my first son. I think maybe my mum knew, but she didn't. Maybe she didn't. I don't know. But it wasn't ever anything I spoke about with my mum. I remember flying home from Qatar when my son was about 6 weeks old, and I had hit rock bottom. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm really struggling. That this baby won't sleep. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm on my own. Like, I need a break. I was exhausted. And I'm just thinking, God, I wish, it actually gets me, it was really hard. Like, I remember just thinking, I wish I had help. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember I got on a Zoom call with my mum, and I was like, and she could see that I was really struggling. She's like, just come home, just book a flight, just come home. Even, it doesn't matter how long it's for, like, let me help you. And I literally jumped on a flight and I went home, and I was there for about 4 weeks. And it helped, I think, just not feeling so alone and so lost. And she validated all the feelings that I had, where I was just like, Mum, this is really hard. I'm just exhausted. I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, it's okay. Like, it's normal what you're feeling. Again, at the time, just not realising how low I was. But obviously I was, like, to just up and leave and go home. I was obviously in a very bad place. And my son was really difficult. I tell him now, I joke around, he's 10, but I'm like, you were really difficult. And my mum always says, God, Sophia, I had 6 children, but he's really hard work. And, I can see why you're struggling. And just her saying that to me, I think I had like this feeling of, I need to have it all together. Like, it's my first son. God, my mum had 6. How can I not do this? You put so much pressure under yourself. Like, why are you not just getting this? Why are you not coping? How dare you possibly struggle on this journey? This is the most natural thing in the world for a woman. But it's change. It's so much change. But her just validating how I was feeling, I think, took a lot of pressure off me. And I was like, okay. Like, she notices, like, I've got a really, tough baby on my hands here. And he didn't sleep for 10 months, didn't sleep through the night. I went through sleep training with him. We had a lot of like health issues with him, and it was tough. But then fast forward to my second son, I can say it was a completely different experience, because you've been through it, right? And I always say, like, I'm actually really grateful that I had a more challenging baby as my first, because it really helped. Like, my second son came along and I was like, oh my God, this baby, like, it sleeps. He's just so chilled. He's like, I'm not panicking, I think, and second guessing myself the way I was with my first. I think I know a lot of mums can relate. I know when I spoke to most of my friends that had their first, and they were like, we get it. Like, you second guess every single thing you do. Are they sleeping for long enough? Are we feeding them the right thing? Is the surrounding is okay? Is the temperature okay in the room? Like, you second guess everything. It comes to your second and you're like, You don't care.
He'll be fine.
He'll be fine. My first one was fine. He'll be fine. Yeah. And so that was really nice. That was good to feel so much more confident the second time, and knowing that, you know, I got through a really challenging baby the first time, and this is going to be fine. You know, I've got this.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Sophia. I know you know, it's a difficult phase, but I think also, as you said, we don't talk about it enough. So you question whether what you're feeling is normal or it's okay, you know. Yeah. And then you question yourself a lot as a new mom. Am I doing, you know, the right things? So I'm glad that you were able to get on a plane and go home.
Yeah.
And when did you feel that you were doing better?
Now? No, I'm joking. The thing is, my boys are quite close in age. They're only 2 years apart. So I fell pregnant when my first son was only 9 months old. And it was kind of just like, those years kind of just merged, I think, all into one. But I definitely think it was about, maybe when they were around 2 and 4, I felt like when they were able to communicate, they became a bit more independent, both of them out of nappies. Sleep schedules were a bit more relaxed. You know, my older son wasn't having naps anymore. My younger one, he was only like napping once during the day. And again, he was also, I'd like to say, my easiest baby. So I would say around then, before then, it was still really challenging. I lost my nephew 3 days after I gave birth to my second. Me and my sister were actually expecting at the same time, and we were only a week apart with both of our sons, and we lost him in a car accident a week before she was due. So that was also a really difficult time, and I feel like I went through a lot of trauma after that as well. So that was kind of also a bit of a blur for me after my second. Maybe also that kind of took over why I wasn't as focused on my son and panicking about everything, because I was going through a lot mentally and emotionally with that. But I remember it getting to about 2 and 4 with them thinking, okay, things are easing up. Things like, you know, it's a little bit easier now. Yeah.
Were you training at the time?
Yeah. So I didn't, I had a lot of morning sickness with my first pregnancy. So by the time it kind of fizzled out, I think I was around 4 or 5 months pregnant. And, you know, the advice that we give to ladies is if you're very active before you're pregnant, there's no problem you going through pregnancy doing exactly what you did before. Obviously we adjust certain exercises, but you can carry on with a kind of the same intensity. I think because I took such a big break out, and it was my first, and this was before I was pre and postnatal trained, so I was a bit more wary. I do wish there was a bit more information out there, and I was a bit more clued up on what I could do, but I was really worried about doing anything too intense that I was doing before, because I'd had such a break. Obviously I know more now, and I'm, you know, more aware and have more education around the fact that I could have gone back to training, but I was so worried because I'd left such a big gap. So I didn't go back to training until after I had my first son. But with my second pregnancy, I trained throughout, and I kept the same intensity. I think I had a better labour for it. I think I also returned back to feeling more myself because I was continuing training and I didn't have a big break. So I'm always going to be a massive advocate for move as much as you can during pregnancy. Obviously we want that foundation before, but moving throughout pregnancy definitely sets you up for feeling better, I think, and having more energy just in general.
So when did you get your pre and postnatal training certificate?
So it was after both of my sons. I would say it was around 4 or 5 years ago. And I think there's not enough emphasis on how important it is for ladies to find a coach, especially after having children. Obviously before as well, but I would say more important after, that they do find a coach that is pre and postnatal trained, because it's not in our regular, you know, level 1, level 2, level 3, like basic training, group exercise or personal training. That's not part of the syllabus. So it's an added extra that coaches have to do to be trained in that area. So I think it's really important that women do find someone that can support them fully, and they are trained and know what to do, because, you know, how fragile we are after giving birth. And, you know, we could have had complications in pregnancy, we could have had complications during the birth, and, you know, everybody's different after they give birth and kind of how their body is. So it's really important that you get someone that actually knows how to properly rehab your body.
You also work a lot on breathwork and hypnobirthing.
Yeah.
Can you, for those that don't quite know, can you tell us what is hypnobirthing?
Yeah, so it's a practice that basically to set mothers and babies up for the best possible start in life. So to give you the best possible birth, and also the best possible start for baby, because it ties in, you know, what happens at birth can have a big correlation to how the baby starts their life. You know, if it's a very stressful birth, you know, there is a correlation between that. So we focus on a lot of breath work. This also, you know, the mind-body connection is super, super important. And this is what we focus a lot in hypnobirthing, how we like to say, where the mind leads, the body follows. So if you have a very positive mindset and you have a strong mindset around the type of birth that you want, then your body will follow that. There's, you know, I think we don't talk enough about positive birth experiences. Usually when we talk to mums or friends, you know, when we're pregnant, the first thing people talk about is their negative experience, how bad it was, how painful it was. And you don't realise all those subconscious thoughts and, you know, conversations you have feed into your mind. And like I say, subconsciously, that's what's going on in your mind all the time. And then you have this really negative mindset around birth before you've even been through it, because no one's talking about the good things, no one's talking about the good experiences, how amazing it was, the positive things, and that can shape what type of labour you have. And that's, you know, that can be really detrimental, especially mentally, to, you know, women and them even wanting to fall pregnant, let alone them being pregnant. So we really focus on the surroundings. So, you know, positive affirmations, having positive conversations, exposing yourself to positive information, positive birth stories, and, you know, giving women the confidence that they can and will have a positive birth experience. Yeah.
What's one positive affirmation that pregnant moms to be can start by saying to themselves today?
I will have a positive birth experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how would you say, or what role would you say breathwork plays in having that positive birth experience?
Oh, hugely. So obviously you see in a lot of the antenatal appointments, classes, that they do focus on a lot of breath work. Hypnobirthing takes you into that subconscious state where we really try and focus on the breath work, and like similar to hypnosis, where you're trying to send yourself off into a completely different place and you're not focusing on what's actually happening at the time. So we do a lot of we'll go through a lot of like readings, and we get the partners involved as well. And we get them to go through the breathing exercises with your, you know, your pregnant partner. And it really helps play a massive role, because if you think, when we go through training, for instance, when we're exercising, that mind-body connection is so, so important. We're thinking about, am I breathing through this exercise? You know, when something gets difficult, if you focus on the pain and you focus on the uncomfortable side of things, you can't really breathe through it properly because you're just focused on that. Whereas when you focus on solely on breath work and you're concentrating on how you're breathing in and breathing out, it takes away from, we don't like to say pain, but uncomfortable, anything that's going on in the body. So hypnobirthing also, I think, empowers. I know with my partner, and I think this is with a lot of fathers as well, going into the birth experience, they all kind of say the same thing: we have no place here, we have no job, we feel helpless. And that's when you're going to see your partner, your wife, in the most difficult, vulnerable state of their life. They've never been through anything similar, and they will never go through anything similar. That is the time when you are at your most vulnerable, and you are at your most helpless as a father, that you can't do anything to take that pain away. So hypnobirthing really includes the fathers into supporting their partners as well, not just physically, but mentally, and also being that voice of reason. So we get the partners to be a voice and bridge the gap between that mother in that really uncomfortable place and vulnerable state through labour, and the medical professionals. So, and we see it especially in a lot here in this part of the world, that whatever the medical professional is telling me must be right, and whatever they're telling me I should do, I must do. And we empower the fathers to have that voice for their partner, in the sense of, if, the medical professional is saying, I really think you should labour in this position, or I really think you should consider having this medication. The father is, because in that point, you know what you want, you've written your birth plan. But a lot of women will say that goes out the window as soon as you're in labour. You just want it over and done with. And obviously that just feeds into like the negative. So having that partner be able to be your voice of reason when you're in your most vulnerable state is so important, because that helps you have the positive birth experience that you planned for. Going in saying, remember, we've got my birth plan. Remember, if I ask for the medication, know that I really want to try everything to not go down that route. Please question if the doctor's telling me to do something. Be my voice to say, I don't want to do that. Because I tell you now, when you're in there, everything goes out the window, and you want to know that your partner feels like he has a space in that room, that he can help you through that. And that's really nice for fathers when they go through hypnobirthing. They say, I actually felt like I could help. I actually felt like I was part of the experience, rather than, years ago, men weren't even allowed in the room. And a lot of them do want to be a big part of it. So it's really nice how we can bring that in for the partners as well in the hypnobirthing experience.
What is one piece of advice that you would give partners listening to this episode?
Involve yourself. If you feel comfortable too, I promise you, your partner will thank you for it, because you've made this baby together. You want to be in that experience together, and like I said, when you're vulnerable, that's the person that you love the most, and you trust that they're going to help you get through it. And I think if you can just educate yourself as much as possible and be in it with them, and this is why I love hypnobirthing, because it really does involve the fathers. So just, involve yourself, be the best support system you can. It really, really helps.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sophia. That's great advice. And stick around, because Sophia is going to show us some of the moves that you can start doing at home today. And moving on to postpartum training. Why is movement postnatally so important?
I think it plays a massive role into recovery. Obviously not doing too much too soon. I'll go through that, obviously what we should be doing at what stage, but it's great for circulation. It's great. I always say mentally, probably more than the physical, because we're not doing much in that first stage, directly after labour. But I think it really helps ladies, do something for themselves, especially during that time when we're all on the baby, just taking those 5-10 minutes, a couple of times a week. It really helps mentally. It's going to help with your hormones. It's going to help with circulation. It's super important if you can. Obviously, that's why we don't start doing too much too soon and putting pressure on ourselves. But just little movement a couple of times a week is really helpful, yeah.
A lot of the times, I think postnatally, we feel like we don't have time, right? You have so much going on, and you just... And rightfully so, right? You have
Absolutely.
A baby, you're sleep deprived, you're trying to figure out a new routine. Mm-hmm. So are there really small movements that moms can start integrating? And would you say that even 5-10 minutes makes a difference?
Oh, for sure. I mean, what we're focusing on anyway after pregnancy is, rehab. I can't stress that enough, that it's not about going back to that fitness class. It's not about going back to running, doing heavy lifting. Obviously, we're doing our day-to-day things anyway, squats, deadlifts in our daily life. We're picking up the baby, you know, carrying stuff. But I can't stress enough how important the rehab is. And when we say 5-10 minutes, we're talking breath work, which obviously I'm going to show later on. The breath work itself, because what we're looking at is rehabbing our core. We're not looking at, you know, getting strong in other areas. That's the most important area of our body we need to focus on, is our pelvic floor and our core, and reconnecting, you know, just finding that mind-body connection again with your core in itself is very difficult, but we do that through the breath work. So yeah, I would just say we're focusing on purely breath work for those first few weeks. Very small movements. Again, 5 minutes. One thing a lot of ladies have to understand is, you know, your hormones, and for one, ligaments in your body for two, are still extremely soft. Your hormones are still, you know, leveling back out, sometimes for up to a year after pregnancy. So it's so important that we don't rush our rehab. These can also lead to injuries in your body, because again, like I said, your ligaments are still soft. You don't want to be doing too much with soft ligaments. You can cause yourself injury, and you can make muscle separation, your diastasis, you can make that actually worse. Most people have some separation, of course, after pregnancy, and if you do have quite big muscle separation, you doing something too soon before you've rehabbed can cause injury. So it's really important that we're not rushing that stage. It really is just about recovery, and walking. Walking is underestimated. Walking is your best friend. You're out. If you've had, I mean, I know it's hot here most of the year, but if you've had your baby at a nice time of year, just getting out for walks, you know, great for the baby, great for you. And it's the best thing you can really do. So breath work and walking, that's all we should be focusing on in the beginning.
You know, one of the hardest things after giving birth is feeling like you don't recognize your body, feeling like you're looking at yourself and wondering, you know, who is that person behind this,
Absolutely.
Behind your body? How would you say women can approach training with compassion and just being kind to themselves? Patience
To know that your body's like been through the hardest thing it's probably going to go through. And having patience that, you know, there's still a lot internally that's going on, especially, you know, if you're breastfeeding, your hormones are all over the place. You know, you will get back there, but just be patient with yourself. You know, it takes time. You know, I always say it takes 9 months to grow a baby. We don't expect your body to be back in 9 weeks. Like, really be kind to yourself and what your body's been through. You know, absolutely, you know, you can build a strong body, but putting pressure on yourself way too quickly could actually stall your recovery. You know, doing anything too soon, you know, that mental pressure on yourself as well. It's not going to do you any good. Just be patient. You will get there, but allow time.
Let's talk about the bounce back culture and this idea of bounce back. I think more and more moms are starting to realize that there's no such thing as bounce back.
Absolutely not.
But there is still that pressure to look a certain way after giving birth.
Yeah.
What is your, you know, recommendation to a mom that feels like she needs to look a certain way after giving birth, and she just needs to get there much faster than she actually, you know, should?
I think one of the biggest things I see with ladies, you know, they can come to me years after having children, and they've kind of hit that rock bottom. You can have this straight after, obviously, but you can have it even for years after having children, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I don't recognize this person. I think, you know, my children are 8 and 10 now. I only wish mums would realize, like, don't put that pressure on yourself so quickly, because those years, they go by really quick. You know, those early years with your baby and your small children, they go by so quick. It upsets me to think that women think the focus needs to be on how their body looks after pregnancy and bouncing back to what they were. And you know what? It's actually okay to say, maybe I will never be that size before I had children again. Maybe I will never be that weight before I had children again. And that's okay. Look at evolving into a completely different person that's stronger mentally, physically, and likes that version of themselves. We don't have to be focusing on who we were before. You know, that might have been 10 years ago. Like, do I expect at 38 to look what I did at 28? No. But do I love the body I'm in now? Yes, because I'm strong and I'm capable, and I have the energy, and I'm physically fit enough to play with my children and be physical with my children. And I really try and tell ladies, those early years, it shouldn't be worrying about what you look like and the size you are and the weight you are. Like, yes, we can get back there, but one, there's no rush, and two, it's not always, accept that maybe it's not always going to be that person that you were before, but that's okay. Like, you're a mum now, you've got, other priorities that might not just be on the way you looked. When you were worried about how you looked before you had children, you only had you to worry about. Now you have a lot of other things to worry about, a lot of other pressures, and one of those things should not be the size of jeans that you're in or what weight is on the scale, because that's not a true reflection of, what your body's capable of.
I always say, what am I bouncing back to? Am I bouncing back to the body that didn't have babies?
Exactly.
Or, the 28-year-old me?
Exactly.
That's not who I am anymore. And that's not who I want to bounce back to.
Exactly.
On the contrary, like, I want to move forward.
Yeah.
And if I have a little bit of extra, here or here. And
exactly.
It's just, I'm so grateful for my body. But
yeah.
I still, I was saying this the other day, I got a comment a few weeks after giving birth that I had gained weight.
Oh, wow.
People feel like they have the right to comment on your body and on the way that you look and on your weight, even after you had just given birth.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy. Why? Like, at the end of the day, why? What are we expected to look at? Is this like really old school mentality that, like, why are we meant to bounce back? Why are we, like, even me, being in a fitness professional for 14 years, even I didn't put that pressure on myself. I'm like, I'm confident enough to know that my body will get back there when it needs to get back there. Let's focus on the positive. Like, what has our body been through? What was this body capable of doing? Carrying a baby, giving birth to a baby, now caring for this baby. This bounce back culture is ridiculous. There's time. It can take 2 years for the body to fully recover, hormonally, you mentally. It can take up to 2 years for the body's, ligaments, joints, everything to kind of get back to where they were. So when you're still in that state of recovery, how can we possibly expect our bodies to be better than what we were before we had children? That's a crazy mentality. Yeah. And
you talked a lot about, training with safety. Yeah. What would you say are some of those safety tips for training postnatally?
Like I said, don't rush back into, just because you could do something before doesn't mean you can do it after. You really need to focus on your recovery. What does that look like? First of all, we need to even be able to activate our core. If you can't activate your core, you cannot be moving through exercises safely and efficiently. And if you're not doing that, then you're very, very prone to injury by not doing something properly. So that's why we really focus on that deep breath work and that pelvic floor connection and that deep core connection. So it's absolutely crazy to me when I see, and we even see fitness professionals, unfortunately, go back to things like HIIT training, running, lifting heavy weights in that really, really early stage of postnatal. And if you see that online and you're like, well, she's a trainer, she's doing it, I can do it. No. You don't. Every woman's body's different. For one, we absolutely should not be doing that. How can we possibly expect our body to jump up and down if our pelvic floor isn't repaired? What's happening to the body if we're putting so much pressure on the pelvic floor by doing such intense training. So I would say, like, running is a big no-no. HIIT training is a big no-no. Lifting very heavily is a big no-no. We need to get that mind-body connection back. We need to be able to activate our core again before we do any of that.
Until when?
Like I said, everybody's journey is going to be different. It all depends on that starting point. If you have a huge muscle separation, you might just be looking at closing that muscle separation for 2 months after, 3 months after. If you're in a good stage, and you can understand that core connection and that activation after, we can start 4 to 6 weeks. Again, it depends. You wait for clearance from your doctor first. But, it really, there is no set timeline. I would just say for the first 4 to 6 weeks, do not worry about anything. Go on your walks and focus on your breath work. That's all you should be doing for that period of time. And, work with someone that can safely rehab you back. So, for instance, on my 6-week postnatal program, I will slowly start introducing things. So these are things like we slowly introduce week after week. We might start with the breath work and then a few activations for the core. Then we might start incorporating some body weight exercises after a couple of weeks. And it's a very, slow, it is a slow recovery, but be kind that you need to go on that slow recovery. Like, there's no rush. You've got the rest of your life, You can be slinging those weights around in 6 months' time, a year's time, that's fine. There's no rush. Just focus on getting the right rehab and recovery in that beginning stage, because if you rush that, that can be really detrimental to your body, and sometimes irreversible damage can be done if you do something too quickly.
Can you tell us about your Me 2.0 program?
Yeah. So I started this, it was around 5 years ago now. My sister, actually, she had her first son, my younger sister. And I also think back to my journey of fitness through motherhood. And I remember thinking I didn't have childcare. Obviously, I was on my own. I was in Qatar. I knew I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to move my body and get back to feeling me. I felt, when I felt ready, it was about 9 months after my first son. And I remember thinking, okay, I've got no childcare. I do not have the confidence to go into a gym, like absolutely not. I can't think of anything worse. And, I'm still, recovering, and I'm shy. And, even as a fitness professional, the thought of stepping into a gym area with women around, like I did not have the confidence. And, I felt really, really vulnerable still. So I feel when it comes to women wanting to get back and start getting back into exercise or continue with exercise, you're in a really vulnerable state. So when I started Me 2.0, I wanted my programs to be for everyone. I didn't want any mother to have a restriction around exercising. So my plans being at home and taking you through every stage. So I have a plan for prenatal, postnatal. I have a plan for just getting started. If you're just getting started on your fitness journey, somebody that wants to get stronger, whatever stage you are during your fitness journey, I've programmed something for you. So I just didn't want childcare cost. I wanted to make them affordable, so anyone could do them. I didn't want people to worry that they had to go into a gym where they feel vulnerable. Anybody could do this from anywhere. I have travel programs, so if you're going through a program and then you happen to travel and you're like, oh my God, I haven't got access to a gym. So I just wanted programs that weren't too intense, that could take you through every stage of fitness, that didn't have restrictions for mothers. Because I think that's a lot of reason why mums hold back, is because they think, oh, getting back into fitness, I've got to go in the gym. If I'm not in the gym doing a crazy class, then it's not working and it's not good enough. Or, I would love to be able to do something, but I don't have childcare. I don't have the luxury of childcare. Not everybody has that. A lot of people hold back because of cost. I have so many people that say, I know what I want to do. I'd love to sign up with a personal trainer, but I can't afford that. And I get that. I've been there where I couldn't afford it. I've been there where I didn't have childcare. I've been there where I didn't want to step into a gym. So I never wanted them to be reasons why women couldn't get back into training.
Mm-hmm. I think another reason is also time constraints, right? Yeah. So on average, how long is the session and how many times per week? So
depending on what program, it can be, if we're talking about like postnatal, in the beginning stages of those first few weeks, we're talking 5-10 minutes. If we start incorporating going down the line with the progressions of the programs, anything between 20 and 40 minutes maximum, very minimal equipment. So it could just be a pair of dumbbells at home, resistance bands, and anything between 3 and 5 days a week. But again, things are optional. It's when you can fit it in, when you've got the time, and there's no restraints to days, times. You've got to do it at this time. You've got to fit it in between this time. It's super flexible, which is the most important thing that mothers need, is the flexibility, because, then you can really find a way around fitting it in.
And where can moms download this program?
So I have my website, sophiaadams.com. On my website, there's links to every program. So there's an outline of every program and what it entails, what the program is about. We also talk you through choosing what program is best for you. So we explain where you are in your fitness journey, then choose this program. And then there's just links that take you directly to the program itself, and we do them through an app.
Okay, great. As always, guys, we'll add the links to the show notes below. Okay, Sophia, so let's talk a little bit more about recovery. We've touched a lot on recovery after giving birth. But why would you say rest, even in between working out, is so important?
So I think a lot of people think that they're building their body physically when they're training, but that's not the case. We're actually, our bodies are rebuilding during our rest phases. So we always want to make sure that we're not doing multiple sessions back to back, because your body's in recovery mode when you're resting, and we're rebuilding when we're resting. So if we're looking at strength training, for instance, our muscles are repairing. So we make these little micro tears in our muscles when we're strength training, when we're building our muscles. And those micro tears, they recover and they rebuild when we're resting. So if you think, okay, I've got to be doing 3 to 4 sessions back to back, you're not allowing your body to rebuild and recover. And also, when we don't allow that process to happen, we're prone to injury, because our bodies are still super sore. They're trying to rebuild. And then we go and we smash another session. What's going to happen? Our body's going to break down. It's going to injure us. We're going to injure ourselves. So it's super, super important that we are allowing that rest time in between. Now, that doesn't mean that, you can do, a gym session on Monday and you have to do absolutely nothing on Tuesday and Wednesday. No, we can be doing active recovery. Active recovery is when we're still moving our bodies, but it's not in an intentional workout. So we're not intentionally going to the gym and doing a session. This might be a bike ride for 10 minutes with your kids. It might be walking with the pram for 20 minutes. It's what we like to call, we're still active, but we're still in recovery mode, because we're not putting our body under the stress that we did during a workout. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Does squatting your baby to sleep count?
I mean, look, there's certain things in motherhood, like just day-to-day life, which we have to do, right? So, we're not intentionally standing there next to the cot doing 20 air squats, but we have to do it in our day-to-day life. So unfortunately, let's just call that active recovery, because, we can't avoid that.
Yeah, I think as moms, we're always on the move, right?
Yeah.
Even like trying to get the kids' lunchbox, trying to put the babies to sleep.
Absolutely.
And that's all part of the movement that goes.
And that's a good point, actually. When this kind of goes back to that very first stage, when you're postnatal, where a lot of women are really scared to do anything. Oh my God, I shouldn't squat, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. What we have to remember, we're doing those things, okay? When you walk out of the hospital with the baby, you're carrying things, usually. I know the dad is carrying the heavy things, but you're still carrying things. What do most men get? 2 weeks with you? Who's it down to after that? Mum. So we're carrying things, we're lifting things, we're doing deadlifts, picking stuff off the floor, we're carrying our babies, we're doing all of these things in our day-to-day life. So don't be too scared to think that you shouldn't be doing anything at all, because we are already doing those things. So we're just not adding, big dumbbells to it, or barbells. But those things follow, but we are doing those things already. So yeah.
If you were to give moms listening a piece of advice, what would that be?
Be kind to yourself. Know that the recovery stage takes time. Be confident that your body can get there, but just be patient with your body and what you've been through.
Great. Thank you so much, Sophia. And I know you've prepared a freebie for us. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. So I'm offering all listeners the first 2 weeks of my postnatal program completely free. So I can help you rehab that first stage.
Thank you for everything, Sophia. I know that today's session was a very important discussion for moms that are trying to reconnect with their bodies. And you really touched on the fact that it's multi-layered. It's not just about going to the gym, grabbing those weights and bouncing back. There's no such thing as the bounce back culture. So thank you for being here. Thank you for everything that you've shared. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. And you know that you can always reach me. You can find me on contact@madinatmom.com. You can reach me on www.madinatmom.com, or you can reach us through Instagram @madinatmom. Until next time, make sure to take care of yourselves as fiercely as you take care of your little ones.
So the first thing I really want to stress on with new mothers is the fact that they should be an advocate for their own health. So making sure that they're having those postnatal checks, because when we're looking at recovery, we want to understand what stage our body's at. So obviously you're going to have your 6-week checkup with your doctor after you've had the baby, but things that are really important that we need to look at is our pelvic floor. What is the stage of our pelvic floor? And also our muscle separation, so diastasis recti. Depending on where that is then going to follow on your rehab and your recovery phase. So what we would say is when we look at the muscle separation between our abs, because obviously our abs and our core muscle have separated, obviously to make way for the baby, and they don't always usually come back together. So it's very normal for us to have obviously some muscle separation, but what we want to look at is, do we need to fully rehab those coming back together? So we would say anything above 2 fingers is something that we need to work on rehab. And then anything below, that's very normal. Going through our postnatal exercises will help, close that gap a little bit more. But that's kind of the baseline that we say to new mothers, is we want to understand where our pelvic floor is and where our muscle separation is. So then we know what our starting point is. That's always what I'll ask my postnatal clients is, we do a check. If they haven't already been checked by a postnatal physio or their doctor, then I'll do it with them and I'll check the muscle separation, as well as their linea alba, which is the muscle that runs directly down the middle. So those are the 2 things we check for, is how far the muscles are separated and how deep that linea alba muscle is and how soft it is. So those are the 2 things that we're usually checking for. So what I'm going to take you through now is going to be the very first things that I'll do with any new mums when we're looking at that rehab recovery phase, and trying to get that mind-body connection back. The first thing that we need to focus on is being able to activate our core muscles. Like I discussed before, if we can't activate our core muscles, we are not going to be able to transition on then to more intense exercises later on. So with our diaphragmatic breathing, what we're looking for is when we take a big deep breath in through our nose, we're looking at raising our rib cage and pushing our breath down into our pelvic floor. Okay, so big deep breath in, we want to see the belly coming out, our ribs rising up, but we still want to keep our chest down. Okay, so being very intentional with our breath and having that mind-body connection. So we're looking at breathing in, and then big breath out through the lips, and then we're bringing that tummy back in, and we're bringing the ribs back down, but we're being mindful not to be breathing through our chest. So the breath is going down into our pelvic floor on the way out, and then we're breathing out. Okay, so one more time, we're going to take a big deep breath in through the nose, raising our ribs, expanding our stomach. So I find if you hold your hands on your rib cage, it really helps with you understanding, are my ribs expanding? Are they lifting up? Okay, so if you want to try it, so you're going to lay on your back and nice So nice, long, deep breath. So you can just place your hands here either side on your rib cage, and you're thinking about, when you take that big deep breath in, you're really thinking about pushing all that air down into your pelvic floor, okay? So big deep breath in through the nose. We're expanding the tummy, expanding the rib cage, keeping that chest down, and then breath out through the nose, bringing that breath in, ribs down, stomach in. Good. And this is going to help you just focus on bringing your core back and engaging your core and understanding that how to actually activate those core muscles again, okay? So one more time, big deep breath in, expanding the ribs, belly, good, pushing that air in and then down. Yes, lovely, very nice. Perfect. That first week when I'm first getting mothers back into that rehab and recovery stage, we will literally just focus on this breathing for 10 minutes. 2 to 3 times a week. That's more than enough. We're just trying to focus on the mind-body connection, activating that core, understanding how to activate that core again, your pelvic floor, how to activate the pelvic floor, and we'll just do that for the first week. Sometimes 2, depending on what stage you're at with your muscle separation. It will just be focusing on the diaphragmatic breathing for that first week. Okay. Then the next stage we're going to look at. Usually after pregnancy, a lot of mothers, especially I know with C-section as well, mothers experience so much lower back pain. We've had that big extra weight on the front of our body, so we need to look at strengthening our glutes to support that lower back pain. And usually when mothers experience a lot of lower back pain, it's down to weak hip flexors and inactive and weak glutes to be able to support that pressure of the baby growing and that extra weight on the front. So the 2 things that we really like to focus on, especially postpartum, is glute strength and back strength. So especially the upper part of the back, because most of the time we're breastfeeding, we're hunched over, maybe we go back to work quite quickly, so we're hunched over at a desk, so we tend to get a lot of back pain because we're in that rounded upper body position. So 2 things we'll focus on is glute strength, doing some exercises to help get some strength back into your glutes to support your lower back, and then your upper back, obviously, for all that feeding and all the hunched over position to pull our shoulders back a bit, okay? So one of the things that we like to go through is glute bridges. So what I'm going to get you to do is lay on your back with your feet. We want them just under our knees, okay? So feet hip width apart and knees hip width apart, so everything's nicely stacked. And before we start, we're going to want to tuck our tailbone under. So we don't want to be in that anterior pelvic tilt where our pelvis is pushing forward. We want to tuck that tailbone under, so we're in a posterior pelvic tilt. So when we drive our hips up, we're switching on our glute muscles, okay? So in really nice, slow and controlled, starting in that position with our back nice and flat to the floor, we're just looking at raising our hips up towards the sky. So raise them up, pushing your feet into the floor. We don't need to go too high, and then we're going to very slowly roll our back down 1 vertebrae at a time. Okay, so nice and slowly controlled. We're going to take a deep breath in as we go up, and then big deep breath out as we roll that spine back down. Okay, so this is just going to help you activate your glutes, and this is something we'll start implementing maybe into the 2nd week after we've started our breathing, our diaphragmatic breathing, and we understand that connection with our core. Then we move on to the glutes, and it's just little add-ons every week, so it's nothing too intense. You'll see this throughout the postnatal program as well. We're just adding on a little bit each week by week, listening to our body, understand how our body's reacting to each exercise. Obviously, if there's something that's painful, or if you ever have any bleeding, then we say stop anything immediately. But otherwise, these exercises usually are very, very safe. Okay, and then let's look into doing something for the upper body. So there's 2 options here. If you've got a resistance band, we're going to do the resistance band option. If you don't, then we're going to do another option where we're going to be laying on our front. Yep, so I'm going to show you an exercise that you can do for your upper back. It's really going to focus on pulling your shoulder blades back. We get a lot of pain when we're hunched over and feel really achy and sore, always being in that position postnatal. Like I said, feeding or hunched over at a computer. So this is a really nice exercise to just pull your shoulder blades back and build on that strength in our upper back muscles, okay? So you're going to get a resistance band, okay? You don't want anything that's too tight. There's different variations, but you kind of really want the lightest band possible, okay? And so seating, you can do this seated or standing. So we're looking at, with the resistance band, we want to be expanding this, pulling this apart as much as we can and pulling it towards our chest. So we start with the band out in front of us, shoulder height, and we want to keep tension on the band the whole time. What we're looking at doing is pulling the band apart and pulling this band towards your chest, so you're activating those muscles in the top part of your back. So keeping your arms as straight as you can, we pull the band towards our chest, pulling the band apart, and we stay here and we take a little squeeze at the top. So you're kind of thinking, if you picture there's a pencil between your shoulder blades and you're trying to crush that pencil. So you're using those upper back muscles to squeeze and keep the tension there, and then slowly coming back to center. And we can do around 10 to 15 reps of these, okay? 3-4 sets with a few minutes in between. So here, squeeze, pulse, relax. Here, squeeze, pulse, and from the back. So we're just activating those upper back muscles, strengthening those upper back muscles, and that will just help pull your shoulder blades back into position, less rounded shoulders, and hopefully just make you feel a little bit better. So if you don't have a band, this is going to be really nice for shoulder rotation, but also again to help pull your shoulder blades back, okay? So lying on the floor, you're going to have your head face down, okay, and the arms up above in front of you. And we're just going to lift the chest and head up off the floor, and we're going to come into a Y position with our hands. So we're lifting up and coming up in to make that Y position. Good. So big deep breath in when you come up. Release. Slowly lower back down. Again. Up. Pause. Slowly lower back down. Pause. And slowly lower back down. So again, these are all very, twist it up. So these are all very slow, controlled movements, just being really intentional with what muscles we're working, what we're activating, trying to get that mind-body connection. Slow, controlled, nothing needs to be rushed. Take your time between reps. And all of these exercises, we're looking at doing between 10 to 15 reps, 3 or 4 sets, which shouldn't take any more than about 10 minutes. Okay, so we've got one exercise for our core, activating our core. There's different stages of doing this, but I'm going to take you through the easiest stage. We're thinking we're just postpartum, we want to be really safe, we're just looking for activation, not anything too intense, okay? So laying on your back. So, like we did with our glute bridges, we want the same position. Okay, with the feet under the knees and hip width apart. We're going to bring our legs up into tabletop position, so your shins are in line with the ceiling, and we're just looking at very slowly alternating our legs to tap the floor. This is going to engage our core. What we don't want to do, we want to focus on making sure that we don't arch our lower back, so we're keeping our lower back nice and flat and in line with the floor. And that we don't have any arching, because this is going to put pressure on our lower back. So we're thinking tailbone tucked under like we did with our glute bridges. Lower back is nice and flat to the floor. Legs come up into that tabletop position, and very slowly and controlling, we lower the tap. We lower our legs and we just tap the floor one at a time, being very mindful that our tailbone is tucked under. We're controlling our breathing, nice and slow and controlled. So this would be the first stage of intensity, and when we look at over the weeks increasing the intensity as our core is getting stronger and we're repairing over time, we'll look at extending our legs. So this would be the first stage for you to just tap down one at a time. And then we would look at coming into the next stage where we're using a bit more of our deep core muscles, and it's going to be a little bit more intense to then extend the leg nice and straight like you just did. Exactly, so one at a time. Good. Yep, still focusing on keeping that lower back on the floor, and again, nice and controlled, nice and slow. Also, the more you lower your legs, intense the exercise is going to be. So for some people, after we've finished tapping down and we find like we've got good core control doing that, and we want to start extending our legs, maybe we look at extending but not so far, so just to here. And then as you gain more strength over time, you can look at extending your legs lower to the floor. Yeah.